Alright, so we've got here E&L Gen 1 AK105. Picked it up on Red Wolf when it was clearanced out right before the Gen 2s came out. They came with the slight improvements, but very commonly seen in FSB stuff. Internally though, it is bone stock. I have not done a single thing to it, and it shoots amazingly well. I'm not going to touch it until I absolutely need to, but you know, people can attest that it's a solid shooting gun. But we've got a basic stock, a stock standard format, standard pistol grip. I do run the GMP magazines. They are the best looking, especially with the ribbing. They're most accurate to the real thing. Takes some modification to fit in the E&Ls a little bit. You can either mod the gun itself or the magazine. I elected to modify the magazines. Don't really have a preference on it. That's just what I chose to do. I do have the Asura Dynamics Zeniko replica parts, the B13 top rail, which is mounted on the other side, as well as the Zeniko B10 and the Zeniko 2 DPS light mounted on the proprietary Gooseneck. And behind that, I do have a replica TDI front grip. And then I do have a generic Aimpoint Comp M4 replica, very appropriate for the style of gun. You could also run EoTechs, whatever really you please, L-cans. You've even seen maybe an ACOG here or there, but this is very commonly seen without being magnified, and a very basic compensator. You see these are the standard Kring style, or even a suppressor, which I do run a suppressor from time to time just for the look. And then lastly, we do have a Blue Force Gear AK Sling. This one's one of their limited edition. And that's about it. Again, bone stock, shoots extremely well. Not going to change it until I need to. Alright, for more of your close quarters scenarios, indoor play, especially just in the airsoft world, LCT came out with the PP19-01 replica, which if you look back, some Russian forces were pretty keen on the MP5. You tend to see that a lot, which obviously it's got the 9mm magazine, very similar, but it's built more so like an AK. The airsoft version is an LCT. Currently, I believe, is the only one on the market. Very well built, very, very solid. But I do have it pretty much set up the same way as my 105 near the front. But this one does come normally with a triangle skeletal stock. I elected for the KitGun steel buffer tube. It's very heavy, but very, very rock solid. And of course, I do have the Magpul CTR Stock on it. It does have the built-in sling mount, which I have a Magpul MS3. Up top, the dust cover has a rail built in rather than needing the side mount, which is really nice. Keeps a much lower profile, so your cheek weld is not as high. So you can actually get down on the sight much easier. I do have a little bit of scarring on there, and then I actually need the tape to keep the battery latch down all the way. Just not a very good replica, and we all know airsoft optics are usually hit or miss, very, very much so a gamble. I did elect for a real steel TDI front grip. It required lots and lots of modification to fit onto the receiver back here, so very gingerly using a Dremel tool, just chipping away little by little till it was a very snug fit. It's very difficult to take off. I shouldn't need to take it off very often, but there's zero wobble. It's a fantastic fit. And then I do have, again, a replica TDI front grip and another Asura Dynamics Zenit 2 DPS light on the proprietary goose mount. I do not have a pressure switch on this one. I'm able to actually reach it with my index finger, the button which you'll see in some of these cutaways. The only internal modification I needed to do on this one was the inner barrel. When I first got it and I was test firing it, it just didn't seem to want to shoot straight. So I took the hop up apart, put it all back together. Come to find out that there was actually some glue on the end of it, and that was skewing the accuracy of the BBs as they left. So the only internal modification is an upgraded barrel, I believe a Lonex stainless barrel, and that's it. Gearbox is completely stock. If there's one thing I would change, the motor seems a little weak. The trigger response on semi-automatic is not as snappy as I'd like it to be, but it's totally doable. All right, here we're going to revisit the Glock really quickly. You guys saw this in my previous video. The only thing that may be different is the trigger assembly, which I actually got off of Kris, who's also on the team. Everything else is exactly the same as it was. Great shooter, just a ton of wear and tear on the slide, which some people like. I might get a new one, really unsure. I mean, realistically, it's just cosmetics. It still works 100%. What actually works out really well is FSB commonly uses the Glock 17, which is really nice. That way, I really don't need two different pistols. Ideally, it would not be the most kosher for the US kit. I could probably get a 45, but we like the Glock and it works for both. So, saves me some from having to buy two.